Sam Elliott's life story is one of quiet determination, long struggle, and patience that lasted decades before true recognition arrived. From the very beginning, his path was shaped by both love and doubt. When he first told his father that he wanted to become an actor, the response was harsh and unforgettable. His father told him he had a snowball's chance in hell of making it. Those words stayed with Sam for the rest of his life, not as something that broke him, but as something that pushed him forward. He grew up carrying that doubt while also holding on to a dream he could not let go of, even when everything around him suggested he should. Sam Elliott was born on August 9, 1944, in a small hospital in Sacramento, California. His early life was simple and grounded, surrounded by working people and everyday routines. His mother was graceful and disciplined, a former champion diver from Texas who later became a teacher. His father was tough and reserved, a man who worked as a predator control specialist and spent much of his time outdoors. The family had deep roots stretching back to El Paso, with stories that reached all the way to the Battle of San Jacinto. These stories gave Sam a strong sense of history and identity. From an early age, he absorbed the values of hard work, honesty, and resilience, even if those lessons sometimes came wrapped in silence rather than words. When Sam was 13, his family moved to Portland, Oregon, and that move changed him deeply. The forests, rivers, and wide open spaces of the Pacific Northwest brought him closer to his father. They hunted together, fished together, and spent long hours side by side without needing to talk much. The quiet between them felt natural. His father's job often kept him away, but when he returned, he brought practical lessons and a deep respect for nature. Those days outdoors shaped Sam's calm presence and steady demeanor, traits that later became part of his on-screen identity. Even then, he carried himself with a kind of still confidence that made it seem like he belonged in wide-open landscapes. Despite this bond, a heavy weight hung over Sam during his teenage years. The man he admired most did not believe in his dream. Sam fell in love with acting at the age of 9 while watching Western films. Something about those stories and characters stirred him deeply. He could imagine himself there, living those lives on screen. But his father's blunt dismissal of that dream hurt more than Sam ever admitted. When his father died suddenly at the age of 54, Sam was only 18. The loss hit him hard. He wished they had more time. He wished his father had believed in him, even once. That grief became a quiet fire inside him. Later in life, Sam would say that his father's honesty and work ethic shaped him more than the doubt ever did, but the pain of that disbelief never fully disappeared. After finishing high school in Northeast Portland in 1962, Sam tried college, unsure of his next step. He studied English and psychology at the University of Oregon but dropped out after 2 terms. He then transferred to Clark College in Vancouver, Washington, where he finally found his way onto a stage. When he played the role of Big Jewel in Guys and Dolls, something clicked. For the first time, he felt certain this was what he was meant to do. A local newspaper even praised his performance, saying he had the potential to become a professional actor. That small piece of recognition meant everything to him. It gave him a sense that his dream was not foolish, even though his father's disapproval still echoed in his mind. Life grew harder after his father's death. Sam took on demanding physical jobs to survive. He worked construction, shoveled gravel, mixed cement, and did whatever labor he could find. His hands grew rough, his body strong, and his patience deepened. Those years of hard work shaped his physical presence and discipline. The toughness he developed on job sites later translated naturally into the rugged characters he became known for. Hollywood did not soften him. If anything, those early struggles grounded him even more. In the mid-1960s, the Vietnam War loomed over young men across America. Sam expected to be drafted. Recruiters approached him, but instead of going to war, he joined the California Air National Guard. His mother begged him not to go, and he listened. Still, the decision left him with guilt that lingered for years. Knowing others went while he stayed behind weighed heavily on him and later influenced the deep respect he showed toward veterans throughout his life. By 1966, Sam knew he could not ignore his dream any longer. He moved to Los Angeles with almost nothing. He carried his father's warning in his mind but refused to let it stop him. Life in Los Angeles was harsh. He worked the same kinds of labor jobs he had done before. Sometimes he slept in his car when he could not afford rent. Every spare dollar went toward acting classes. He kept himself grounded, reminding himself that there was no shame in honest work. Giving up was never an option. Slowly, small opportunities began to appear. In 1966, he landed a brief guest role on the television series The Virginian. It was small, but it got him onto a professional set. He later appeared on Lancer in 1969 and continued picking up minor roles through the early 1970s. Many of his characters had few lines or no names at all, but people noticed his quiet strength. His presence felt natural, unforced, and authentic. One of his earliest film appearances came in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in 1969. His role was tiny, listed simply as a card player in a bar scene next to Robert Redford. Sam often joked that he was little more than a shadow in the background. Still, the film was a massive success, and being part of it placed his name inside Hollywood's larger world. Catherine Ross was also in the film. At the time, Sam was too nervous to even speak to her. Years later, she would become his wife. The early 1970s also exposed Sam to the darker side of Hollywood. He faced casting couch propositions from both men and women, situations that many actors experienced but rarely spoke about openly. Sam turned them all down. That decision cost him work. Some doors closed permanently. Some casting directors never called again. Still, he refused to trade his dignity for success. He believed that if he made it, he would do so on his own terms. In 1976, his career finally took a meaningful step forward. He was cast as Rick Carlson in Lifeguard, a role that allowed audiences to see the full range of his talent. The film was released on July 23, 1976, and critics noticed him immediately. His calm charm, deep voice, and relaxed strength stood out. For the first time, Sam Elliott felt like his years of struggle were leading somewhere real. Another major shift came in 1979 with the television series The Sacketts. Playing the role of Tel Sackett felt right to him in every way. Filming took place in New Mexico under intense heat and harsh conditions. Long days, dusty sets, and endless hours on horseback pushed him physically, but he loved every moment. The story of three brothers after the Civil War mirrored themes of separation and longing that Sam understood deeply. He carried that loneliness naturally in his posture and expressions. The series was a hit, and Hollywood finally began to see him as more than a background actor. However, success brought new challenges. His rugged appearance and deep voice made him an easy choice for Western roles, and he soon found himself being typecast. Studios often passed him over for lead roles, choosing younger or more polished actors instead. These rejections hurt more than the earlier ones because by then, Sam knew he could carry a film. He tried turning down roles that leaned too heavily into the cowboy image, hoping to avoid being trapped. Ironically, that choice sometimes limited his opportunities even further. Still, he remained honest about his frustration, and people respected him for it. During this time, Sam made a decision that became iconic. He grew out his mustache and refused to shave it, despite pressure from executives who wanted a softer image. The mustache took months to grow properly, and shaving it for a role meant starting all over again. For Sam, it became a quiet symbol of his refusal to compromise who he was. Eventually, it helped him land roles that matched his authenticity. Throughout the 1980s, Sam built a reputation as a dependable and powerful character actor. He appeared in films like The Big Town, where his performance stood out even without leading the cast. In Fatal Beauty, he surprised audiences with his ability to blend toughness with humor alongside Whoopi Goldberg. His voice also became one of his greatest assets. It was strong, authoritative, and unforgettable, leading to numerous voice roles that further expanded his career. Sam was known for his serious approach to acting. He valued subtlety and sincerity and had little patience for actors who treated performance like a spectacle. This attitude sometimes led to clashes with other well-known actors, but Sam never apologized for his beliefs. To him, acting was about truth, not showmanship. In 1989, he delivered one of his most memorable performances as Wade Garrett in Roadhouse. Playing a mentor figure, Sam brought warmth, wisdom, and quiet strength to the role. He filmed the entire movie while hiding a knee injury, refusing to let it slow him down. The pain only added depth to his performance. The film later became a cult classic, with his character remaining one of its most beloved elements. By the 1990s, Sam Elliott had become a cult icon. Roles in films like Tombstone, The Quick and the Dead, and The Big Lebowski cemented his legacy. In Tombstone, his portrayal of Virgil Earp felt authentic and lived in, enhanced by his now famous mustache. In The Big Lebowski, his role as the stranger was brief but unforgettable. His calm narration and unique presence left a lasting impression, turning his lines into quotes repeated for years. After decades of struggle, Sam Elliott finally reached a point where his work spoke for itself. The man once told he had no chance of success became a symbol of authenticity, integrity, and perseverance. His story is not one of overnight fame, but of steady belief, quiet strength, and refusing to compromise, even when the cost was high. He even lent his voice to the character of Trusty in Disney's Lady and the Tramp in 1997, though animated roles were never his main focus. Live-action work mattered more to him because it carried the kind of realism and grit he valued so deeply. While many actors chased larger paychecks or easier opportunities, Sam Elliott consistently chose authenticity. That decision defined his career and revealed how strongly he believed in staying true to himself, even when it meant turning down popular or lucrative projects. One moment, in particular, showed his commitment better than almost anything else. He was offered the villain role in Con Air, a film that would later become a massive hit. Elliott turned it down because he felt the character was too exaggerated and cartoonish. He did not want to play someone who felt unreal or over the top. Depth mattered more to him than spectacle, and he believed the role lacked that depth. The part eventually went to John Malkovich, who played it in a very different style. Elliott never regretted his decision. For him, saying no was just as important as saying yes. In 2002, Sam Elliott took on one of his most powerful and grounded performances in We Were Soldiers. He played Sergeant Major Basil Plumley, a real-life soldier whose history carried enormous weight. Plumley was born in 1920 in West Virginia and enlisted in the military in 1942. Over the next 3 decades, he lived a life defined by war and service. He fought on the beaches of Salerno in Normandy during World War II and survived Operation Market Garden in 1944, where he earned a Purple Heart. He later served in Korea with the 187th Airborne Infantry Regiment. In Vietnam, he became the Sergeant Major of the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment during the Battle of Ia Drang in November 1965. That battle marked the first major clash between American and North Vietnamese forces. It was brutal, chaotic, and unforgettable. Plumley became legendary for his commanding voice and unshakable presence under fire. Many of the lines Elliott delivers in the film were taken directly from things the real Plumley actually said, including comments about the weather during combat. By the time Plumley retired in 1974 as a command sergeant major, he was already a legend among soldiers. He lived quietly until his death in 2012, but his reputation never faded. Elliott carried Plumley's memory on screen with deep respect, portraying him as if he had known him personally. The following year, in 2003, Elliott stepped into a completely different kind of role when he played General Thunderbolt Ross in Hulk. This time, he was not portraying a real soldier but a comic book character who had existed for decades. In Marvel lore, Ross had been chasing Bruce Banner since the early days of the Hulk storylines. He was driven by obsession, anger, and fear, seeing the Hulk as both a danger and a weapon. Elliott's deep voice and rugged presence fit the character perfectly. Fans connected strongly to his portrayal and were disappointed when William Hurt later took over the role in future films. In the comics, Thunderbolt Ross eventually becomes the Red Hulk, but Elliott's version focused more on control, regret, and inner conflict. He brought more emotional depth to the role than the script demanded, letting pain and frustration sit quietly behind his eyes. Even in a superhero film, Elliott found a way to stay grounded and real. In 2005, he delivered one of his most quietly heartbreaking performances in Thank You for Smoking. He played Lorne Lutch, the original Marlboro Man, now dying of cancer after spending years promoting cigarettes. The role was inspired by real events from the 1980s, when the tobacco industry began facing public backlash. The character was partly based on David McLean, a real Marlboro Man who died in 1995 after decades of smoking. Elliott's performance centered on a single, powerful scene in which a tobacco lobbyist attempts to buy his silence. The contrast between his fading cowboy image and the industry that once used him was painful to watch. Beneath the film's satire, Elliott carried a quiet shame and regret that stayed with audiences long after the movie ended. As time passed, Hollywood finally began to give him the recognition he deserved. In 2019, after more than 50 years in the industry, Sam Elliott received his first Academy Award nomination for A Star Is Born. He was 74 years old. He played Bobby Maine, the older brother of Bradley Cooper's character, a man burdened by old wounds, love, and resentment. His role was small in screen time but massive in emotional impact. The film earned 8 Oscar nominations, and Elliott received honors from the National Board of Review, along with Critics' Choice and SAG nominations. Reviewers everywhere agreed it was long overdue. Elliott joked that he was winning the war of attrition, and in many ways, he was right. He had simply lasted long enough for the world to catch up. 2 years earlier, in 2017, he had already shown something deeply personal in The Hero. He played Lee Hayden, an aging Western actor facing a terminal diagnosis and the slow loss of everything he once was. The film moved gently through fear, regret, and silence. In one unforgettable scene, he coughs up blood while riding toward the horizon, fully aware that both his life and his legend are fading. That moment felt painfully honest. Elliott carried the entire film with quiet grace, allowing viewers to feel every emotion the character tried to hide. His performance earned recognition at the Newport Beach Film Festival and reminded audiences of his true depth as an actor. Even in brief appearances, Elliott left lasting impressions. In Top Gun: Maverick in 2022, he appeared only briefly as a bartender who shares a story about last moments and unfinished journeys. Much of the speech was improvised. The director trusted Elliott to shape it, and he delivered a calm monologue that carried surprising emotional weight in a film filled with noise and speed. That small scene stood out and lingered long after the credits rolled. In animation, he brought the same authenticity. In 2015, he voiced Butch, the T-Rex rancher in The Good Dinosaur. The character spoke with the calm toughness of an old Western hand. Lines like "If you ain't scared, you ain't alive" became fan favorites. Elliott enjoyed the idea of a dinosaur who sounded like a seasoned rancher, and his mix of humor and grit gave the character unexpected warmth. In 2021, he starred in 1883 as Shea Brennan, a Pinkerton agent guiding families along the Oregon Trail. At 77 years old, Elliott still performed many of his own stunts. The conditions were harsh, with long days, intense heat, and demanding physical work. He endured bruises and strained muscles without complaint. That pain fed into the character, who carried deep grief after losing his family. Elliott allowed that sorrow to appear in every glance and every breath. When the series ended, and Shea fulfilled his promise before choosing his fate, viewers felt the weight of his entire journey. His performance became the emotional core of the series and left a lasting mark on the Yellowstone universe. Behind the public image and celebrated career, Elliott's personal life held challenges rarely discussed openly. His daughter, Cleo Rose Elliott, grew up surrounded by fame and pressure. Court records later revealed that by her early teens, her relationship with her mother, Catherine Ross, had become deeply strained. Arguments grew more intense over time, turning into frightening moments that outsiders struggled to understand. On March 2011, everything reached a breaking point in their Malibu home. Cleo was 26 years old. According to Ross, the argument escalated quickly. She said Cleo threatened to kill her, kicked cabinet doors, and followed her through the house. When Ross tried to call the police, Cleo allegedly cut the phone line and attacked her with scissors, stabbing her several times in the arm. The injuries broke through her clothing and left lasting marks. Ross filed for a restraining order days later, describing the incident in detail. The public was shocked, but for the family, it was the result of years of unresolved pain. A restraining order was issued, requiring Cleo to stay away from her mother. Police escorted her as she collected her belongings. When the court date arrived later that month, neither Cleo nor Ross appeared, and the judge dismissed the order. The legal matter ended quickly, but the emotional damage remained. Healing came slowly, with periods of distance mixed with quiet attempts at reconciliation. Through it all, Sam Elliott remained calm and silent. He never spoke publicly about the incident, choosing to protect his family from further attention. Over time, small signs of peace appeared, shared moments that suggested healing was happening privately. Long before fame and family struggles, there was a simple moment in 1969 when Elliott first noticed Catherine Ross on the set of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He was an extra, and she was already an Oscar winner. He noticed her but said nothing. Nearly a decade later, they met again on the set of The Legacy in 1978. By then, Elliott had grown into himself and finally told her how he felt. After filming, they spent months apart, writing letters across the ocean. That quiet connection turned into something lasting. Ross had been married 4 times before. Elliott had never been married. They wed on May 1, 1984, in Malibu, with James Garner officiating. The ceremony was small and intimate. Their daughter Cleo was born the following year, and they built a life that balanced Hollywood with privacy. Despite rumors and tabloid stories, they stood by each other. In 2024, at age 81, Elliott called Ross his partner, his home, and his everything. Their marriage, lasting over 4 decades, survived fame, heartbreak, and time. Through every role and every storm, he kept choosing her, with the same steady loyalty that defined his life and his voice.